order this August 7th meeting, hybrid regular meeting of the Highland Park Board of Education. This is also a voting meeting. The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, the Highland Park Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting, setting forth the time, date, and location to be submitted for publication to the Home News Tribune and Star Ledger, and posted on the board's website at least 48 hours in advance of this meeting. Members of the public who wish to address the board will be given the opportunity to do so before the board adjourns the meeting. And welcome to our new business administrator. We're doing the roll call. Denise DeRosa, we're happy to have you here.
Thank you.
And now you do the roll call.
Ms. Saldun?
Here.
Ms. Coleman?
Here.
Ms. Gowan?
Here.
Ms. McFadden DeNicola? Ms. Bruce?
Here.
Mr. Rosler? Ms. Voorhees?
Here. Okay, we move to the approval of the minutes of our virtual, regular, public, and executive session meetings from July 17th. So actually, I move that we approve those minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do roll call for that as well.
Ms. Saldun?
Yes.
Ms. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Gowan?
Yes.
Ms. McFadden DeNicola? Ms. Bruce?
Yes.
Mr. Roslovich?
He's actually on. So
Ms. Voorhees?
Is this for the minutes?
Oh,
yes, you're, Rob, we're approving the minutes.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we move to the superintendent's report. And, oh, sorry. I was jumping ahead. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, how did I really skipped ahead? Okay, sorry about that. So we did roll call, pledge of allegiance. There were no communications this month. I think everybody in Highland Park's been on vacation or taking a break. So it's been quiet on communications. We approved our minutes, so now we can go to the superintendent's report, and Dr. Poston has something she wants to say.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. I do have a presentation to give tonight on the New Jersey Graduation Proficiency Assessment, our test results, as required by the state. But first, I'd like to say something that really touched my heart over the weekend. It is with profound sadness and a heavy heart that I share the news, which we all have probably heard, of the loss of one of our own esteemed former board members, Darcy Simorowski. This is an incredibly difficult time for our school district as we come to terms with the loss of a dedicated individual who played a vital role in shaping the education of our students. Darcy was more than just a board member. She was a pillar of our community, a passionate advocate for education, and a compassionate supporter of our students, teachers, and staff. Her commitment to supporting a nurturing and inclusive learning environment for all was evident in every decision she made. We remember Darcy for her tireless efforts in advancing our schools, championing public education initiatives, and striving to ensure that each student had the opportunity to succeed. Her contributions to our district were invaluable, and she will be greatly missed by all who had the privilege of knowing and working with her. In times like these, it's essential that we come together as a close-knit community to support one another through the grieving process. As we mourn the loss of Darcy, let us also celebrate the legacy she leaves behind, the positive impact she made on the lives of countless students, the inspiration she provided to fellow board members and educators, the inspiration she provided to fellow board members and educators, and the lasting mark she left on our educational landscape. To the family and friends of Darcy, please accept our heartfelt condolences during this time of bereavement. We share in your sorrow and stand ready to offer any support and assistance you may need. Let us honor the memory of our departed colleague by continuing the work she was so passionate about, providing the best education for all students and ensuring a bright future for generations to come. May the memories of Darcy comfort us during this difficult time, and may we find strength in the unity as we move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Or to move from that to the mundane of what Darcy would have had a lot to say.
I was just going to say, it's kind of apropos that I have to now talk about state test scores, which is, I know, something that she championed against because, as she always said, and I truly believe, and I know we all do, that our students are more than a test score. So it's unfortunate that I have to present on this, but the state requires me to, so I will move forward with the business, and I know Marilyn will probably have more to say about our esteemed colleague, champion, and friend, Darcy Laver. Okay. We should be good here. Okay, we can see my screen. All right, so tonight I'd like to share the NJGPA test results. The New Jersey Graduation Performance Assessment was adopted on May 3rd of 2023. The proficiency level cut scores for English language arts and mathematics, as well as the menu of alternative assessments and aligned cut scores. So on May 3rd, if you recall, the New Jersey Board of Education changed the cut levels. Take two. So the NJGPA test results is, all right, let's go back to, I think I have the first slide anyway. So we'll go back to how we started here. So the state requires, the statute for the NJGPA requires that all students take this test in grade 11. So it's similar to those, if anybody recalls, from the HSPA, the HSPTs, the graduation requirements for 11th graders. So there is statute that requires all students take the NJGPA test. It's designed to measure the extent to which students are graduation ready in ELA and mathematics. And the graduation readiness is reported separately from each content component. The ELA component is aligned to grade 10 standards, and the mathematics component is aligned to Algebra 1 and Geometry. On May 3rd of 2023, the state did change the cut scores. So they actually lowered the cut scores a little bit for all students around the state. For students who take but don't meet the minimum required score on each component of the assessment, have the opportunity to receive additional support in one of the following steps, so they can retake the ELA or math components in the fall or the summer. They can meet a designated cut score from the menu of substitute competency tests or complete a portfolio appeal. So there are some alternate pathways to graduation as well, including SAT scores, PSAT scores, ACT scores, and a couple other options. The NJSLS is another one as well. So if students pass the Algebra NJSLS test, then they also meet the requirements. So if they took Algebra 9th grade, but 11th grade didn't pass this test, but they passed the NJSLS, then they still meet that requirement. So there were other alternates for graduation, and the other option is a portfolio appeal. So how did our students fare against students across the state? So as you can see, our students, 89.2% of our students in 11th grade for the ELA were graduation ready, as compared to the state average, which was 80.5. So that left about 10.8% of our students what they deemed as not yet graduation ready, versus the 19.5 estimated across the state. Our mathematics scores, our students in Highland Park are 11th graders, about 69.2% of them were graduation ready for mathematics, as compared to the state average, which was about 55% of the students overall. Not yet graduation ready for Highland Park is 30.8%, as compared to this not yet graduation ready for mathematics across the state, which was 45%. And sometimes the percentages might not total 100 due to rounding. So we can break this down by our subgroups in terms of graduation ready. So the ELA is in red and math is in the gray colored And so you can see the bar graph comparing the two versus our comparison on the side. It's important to note that there is a minimum reporting of 10. You have to have at least 10 students in that subcategory for there to be a report. So if you don't see the category here, that means we don't meet that requirement. For example, our Pacific Islander group, we don't have 10 students, I think we have 2. So unfortunately, we don't have that data set available since we don't meet that minimum. In our 11th grade, you can see we have 30 Hispanic students, 32 Asian, 10 Black students, 45 white, 11 that are 2 or more races, so that makes up our racial subgroups. And then for economically disadvantaged, we have 35 students, special ed 13 in the 11th grade class, 13 with 504s, and then it's broken down that 69 are female and 60 are male. So you can see that, that breakdown. Again, if we have students that are non-binary or undesignated gender, they're not graphics, we wouldn't have 10 or more of those students. So as you can see from the breakdown of our subgroups, overall our students look to be a little bit, in some categories more so, ready ELA proficient than math proficient. In terms of our percentage, some areas of weakness obviously were special ed, ELA, 38.5% of them are ELA ready and 15% are math ready. But overall, our ELA students, if you look at some of our notable achievements, our students really did score very, very well in our ELA readiness. But I will compliment our students overall that scored above average in the state for math readiness and ELA readiness. So although our ELA scores were much better than math, overall our students did score above average than the state. And the disparities between ELA and math are very interesting to our team. What we have found so far is that that's very common in New Jersey school districts. So Ms. Saka, our math supervisor, has reached out and started a data chart with schools across the state. So far the summer, it's been slow to collect that data from supervisors on vacation, but so far we've heard back from 22 North Jersey schools that indicate approximately 27% of students are not graduation ready for math, while approximately 10% are not graduation ready for ELA. So we're finding this disparity that's very common amongst other school districts, which has us curious. So what we're doing is continuing the conversations between the math supervisors to figure out what that disparity is. Was it an issue with the test? Is it an issue with the administration of it? You know, the way the content, a traditional way of thinking about math is that Algebra 1, Geometry, Algebra 2. I can't imagine the students forgot Algebra 1 and Geometry by the time they're 11th grade, but you never know. So we're trying to figure out why those disparities exist around the state as well, with district leaders, and the conversation is happening at the New Jersey Department of Education. So hopefully we'll have more information about why that's happening. We do have some concerns why our students might not even be more graduation ready than we're displaying. So we do have some intervention strategies that we started last year, anticipating that our students were struggling coming back from COVID already and needed some support based on our local data from assessments. So what we will continue to do for our intervention strategies, we have after-school mentoring programs to increase academic success, as well as social skills and peer relationships. We have teacher-to-teacher, which we started last year. It's professional development for teachers in grades 6 to 12 on data-driven instructional practices. So we have a coach coming in to both middle school and high school teachers that go in the classroom, take notes about what they're seeing and provide the teachers feedback, and then targeted professional development based on that in terms of using data to drive instructional practices for differentiated instruction. We have Peer Connect professional development. We talked about that at the end of last year. We hired Kyler Brewster to do that work, and that's on school climate and culture to support peer relationships and increase school attendance in grades 6 to 12. What's not noted on this, obviously, because this is 11th grade data, but we still have a significant issue with chronic absenteeism across the district. So we're hoping, even at the high school level, that we can increase the culture of the school, that students want to be there and engaged, and that will increase our scores as well. We're working on the use of common language on assessments across all grade levels that reflect items on the New Jersey Student Learning Assessments, including the NJGPA. So looking at not specifically teaching toward the test, but using common language that would be used as good mathematicians and good readers and writers, so our students are more prepared, and sample assessment type of questions that are higher level thinking you'll see throughout the grade levels. And we're currently reviewing and expanding our multi-tiered system of supports or support systems, MTSS, to best identify and support varying learning needs of our students. So last year, if you remember, we hired Comegno Institute to come in and do an audit of our MTSS, and we found some disparities between all 4 buildings, some inconsistencies, and the need for more rigorous INRS data collection and use for the tiered interventions to support our students. So we're still reviewing that information. We're putting together our design teams for MTSS, and then we're using Frontline actually, which we use for IEP Direct, and 504 for INRS to collect data, put together the intervention strategies, and really collect information on how our students are doing with those interventions. Not only in academics, but behavioral. That was another disparity that we found in our MTSS data collection of where our audit lay was some of our schools weren't seeing behaviors as a need for an intervention from TSS and IRS. So we want to make sure that we couple the academic with the social, emotional, and behavioral needs to best support our students. In addition, we are implementing common benchmarks for all high school English students to track their skill progress. And there are high school support classes added in geometry and algebra 2 for students identified as at risk. So we have an algebra 1 support class that already exists for students that are at risk to get to support them. That's been really successful. So we're expanding that to geometry and algebra 2 to support our students as well. And that concludes my presentation, so I'll stop sharing. 1 second. Okay, so I'll open it up to board members for any questions.
Hi, I have a couple of questions. Thank you for sharing that data with us. So a couple of questions I had, just following up on some of the interventions plan. And I'm wondering what the administration is thinking about our students with disabilities and addressing needs there. I'm not sure if I kind of read that into what you shared.
Yes, great question. So we actually had a meeting today with Dr. Linda Edwards, who is an expert in co-teaching models. And so she developed a plan with Ms. Capola and Ms. Teacher actually today. We finalized the plan for next year for professional development with our special ed teachers on co-teaching models, because we found discrepancies there as well, inconsistencies and discrepancies in our co-teaching models. So we want to make sure that we have sound teaching partnerships and ways to address our students' needs so that they're being supported in classes as well. So we are going to be doing professional development for our special ed teachers.
Thank you. And then for the support classes that are being offered, those are optional, right?
Yes, correct.
And then I'm just wondering how the participation has been.
For our Algebra 1 class, it's been wildly successful. That's why we want to expand it to Geometry and Algebra 2 as well.
Does it take the place of another course they take? That's a problem. Is that?
Well, it would, but there's a little bit more flexibility in the high school just because of the A period and the way you can structure your different courses. And some of our students sometimes only need it for a semester. So they're finding success and getting, they're more comfortable and things like that, then they can, move on, into another class, a semester class. So they are finding success there. It's a little bit easier for scheduling at the high school because there's more options versus the middle school where the schedule is pretty packed. So if you're in intervention in middle school, the option is you can't have a world language. So that's been a very big struggle at the middle school since I've started here as a STEP supervisor, is the way this, because we don't have enough staff or physical classrooms. If students sometimes our students actually place into both ELA intervention and math intervention. So they have to, in that case also too, all intervention that is a tier 3 where it's a pull out, you have to get parent permission. You can't just pull a student out of their class for intervention. You have to get parent permission, K-12. In the middle school, the trouble is that they then can't have world language, and especially with our Spanish classes, the students love Ms. G Vanetti, and Spanish is a popular choice, and we love that the students like to have that diverse option in their schedule. They love Spanish, and we want them to be well-rounded and have that language. It's unfortunate that sometimes it comes at a price that they're, significantly below grade level in reading or math, and so sometimes it's a balance, and parents refuse for the intervention because the child really would prefer to take the Spanish class. One of the things we're trying to do, if they take, the idea of intervention is that they place in, but it's not a life sentence. So the idea is there should be you test in, but you can test out. So there should be like an exit strategy for students leaving intervention. However, sometimes with the schedule constraints, that's not always the case, and they end up just staying there and they're bored because they don't need it anymore. The issue we found, especially at the middle school, is if they get pulled out of, they don't take world language and they take, let's say, math intervention, and halfway through the year, or even as 1 quarter of the year, they close their gaps, then they're behind in Spanish because Spanish is already a quarter of the way or half the way through the year. So we're trying to work with the Spanish teachers to provide, and world language teachers to provide professional development where maybe their classes are a little bit more self-paced and self-directed. So the teacher's still the instructor, but they could come in and pick up at a certain point in their level of understanding. It's like pick up where they left off in their Spanish so that they don't feel like they're in a class where they're constantly drowning now. So that's going to take some time as well. So we're really trying to be creative with some of our options for the students. We're hoping with the addition of the part-time dance, theater, and theater teacher that alleviates some of those issues because we have more options for students with scheduling. So hopefully that will relieve some of the issues that we're finding. I'm only speaking about the middle school because I know these were 11th grade test results, but we do have an issue, obviously, that steps all the way down to our lower levels.
I just want to say, the differentiated, language instruction is, I can imagine that would be a challenge.
Yes, so that's why we may need professional development before we just throw them into the fire for that.
Right. No, I appreciate that. I mean, clearly just managing and juggling intervention supports with all the other important enriching classes.
Yeah.
It's a tricky balance. One more question.
Sure.
Speaking of PD, the Peer Connect with Tyler Brewster and focusing really on climate and culture, I'm wondering how we're going to think about assessing that work. Is that sort of been part of the discussion?
So it has been. I know that Brooke Baldazone has shared that information with Aislinn Skolsky, who's taking over in her seat and in her place. So we will follow up. Our leadership team meetings in August are in 2 weeks from now, and part of that conversation is the data that we will collect on both the work of the teacher-to-teacher PD and the work with Tyler Brewster.
That's wonderful. Yes, of course, we know that the climate and culture is so connected.
Yes, absolutely. If kids aren't feeling connected, they don't want to learn.
They don't come to school.
And they don't come to school.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Rather than opt out completely, students choose to use their algebra scores to go for this instead?
So opt-out, unfortunately, is not an option anymore. The state said that they have to sit, you have to sit for the test in order to even, and take the test seriously in order to qualify for the alternate assessments. So unfortunately, that is a state law, not a local law. Opt-out is not an option anymore, unfortunately. So they have to do that. And if they sit for it and take it seriously, because I guess they know by the rate of the clicks of the mouse, I guess. I don't know what they deem as, it flags it as if they just go click and finish in a certain time, they flag it. So they have to actually try, and if they're not successful, then it triggers. We have Genesis set up that it triggers for the next, what they call it, level 2 of graduation proficiency, like option 2. Does that make sense? Yeah.
We've mentioned chronic absenteeism a few times over the last few months, and I'm curious, you have the MTSS design teams looking at kind of disparities between the buildings and things like that. Is there any sort of design team or either district-wide or school-based team that's looking at how we support attendance?
Yeah, so that the 3 principals, Ms. Baldazone, Mr. DePayne, and Mr. Richardson are going to work collectively to track that data and look for ways to support our students and chronic absenteeism. The issue that Megan can support that at Irving, however, it's a little bit more challenging. It's really just first grade because kindergarten is a required class, of course, grade level, so the data doesn't count for anything, and neither is preschool. So that data is not as significant to us. So the 3 assistant principals are tasked with doing that, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
There's one side of the disparities between ELA and math, and that's very common in New Jersey.
Yes.
Is this common in other states with their types of testing, or is it?
That's a good question. I have no idea. I don't know anybody in other states, and I haven't really looked at that data. But it definitely was something that was alarming to us. And then when we started reaching out to other people, they were saying the same thing. So that's when Lisa was like, I'm going to start a spreadsheet and reach out and have people complete it because something seems to be odd, right? Like, and it's like if it's just you or just a couple, but when we're seeing that, like a lot of people are coming back with that's pretty alarming.
I'm just wondering if it's a bigger issue than
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't
New
know.
Jersey in general.
Yeah, I don't know.
And there's not another, this is the first time this test has been given, right?
Yes,
So it's not taken care of.
right. There's no comparison data.
Yes. Okay, any other questions or?
That completes my report. Thank you.
For the point of view of process, we're going to be doing board committee reports and review of the agenda. But this, then we'll go to public comment, and then we will come back to vote. So it is a voting meeting, even though typically it's not the first meeting of the month, it's typically a workshop. But, so public comment will come after our committee reports and review the agenda items. So curriculum and instruction.
All right, so curriculum and instruction met on August 1st. It was myself, Ms. Rodriguez, and Dr. Nicosia. We continue to look at benchmark data. This time we looked at Irving's phonics skill set, or phonics screener, I should say, which showed students progressing from when they first come in, like they give them a pre-skill set, so something that isn't, what they would call skill set 1, up to skill set 4, which is what you would want them to be at the end of the year. And they have about 49% of students that are at level 4 or higher. There is a significant group of students at that level 3. At that level, there are a lot of CBC word skills, which is consonant, vowel, consonant. So teachers will really focus in on this area this coming school year. Grade 1's phonics screener showed similar progression, with about 50% of students being within levels 9 to 13, which is what you would want the children more by level 13 by spring. We also discussed the Fontes and Pinnell reading assessments for K and 1. These assessments, like we said last meeting, they're not closely aligned with the phonics approach to instruction. So what the benchmark showed was that there were lower performance for some of the skills that were not taught because the teachers were taking a more phonetic approach. The committee also looked at math benchmark data. About 68% of kindergartners and 87% of grade 1 were proficient at the time of the spring assessment. It was noted that the first grade experienced an increase of 24 students throughout the year, and that's approximately the size of an entire class. So some of this data may be influenced by this influx of students at different readiness levels. The data was used from these assessments to identify students who would benefit from summer instruction. The same concept was used for middle school and Bartle as well. Unfortunately, we do see smaller turnouts for students who accept summer instruction. We requested and received the exact numbers, so it was about a third of the students accepted SHIP, which is our summer instruction in Irving, a little bit more than a third at Bartle, and 1/4 of students in the middle school. So we are going to continue discussing how we can encourage attendance in those programs. The middle school math data had approximately 70% of 6th graders passing the spring benchmark and 45% passing the 7th. However, the 7th grade data did not include the algebra students. The committee asked for clarification on how the scores differed between math 7 students and our pre-algebra students, and how these results will be used to adjust instruction and support students in math this year. The committee also reviewed AP test scores, which had had results, scores 3 and above, return to the levels that they were at before COVID, which is great. We also saw an increase in the number of students that took AP tests this year, which is also wonderful. About 124 exams scored a 3, and about 202 exams scored either a 4 or a 5. Now, remember, that's exams, not students. Many times these students will take multiple exams. Next year, in order to, like Dr. Nicosia just said, the high school will be using benchmark assessments from Common Lit that will help them kind of keep track of ELA skills throughout the year. We also discussed Dr. Nicosia and Ms. Rodriguez's first meeting with Middlesex College to discuss programs that would expose our students to coursework and programs available at Middlesex. Middlesex discussed hybrid and remote options for coursework, and as those conversations continue, we will bring you more details. We revisited parent concerns regarding rigor within ELA. With the upcoming adoption of the New Jersey Learning Standards for 2024 implementation, curriculum will be revised throughout this coming year to reflect those new standards and to reflect all of the work that the design teams with MTSS is doing in order to plan for supports and interventions. This includes like our ELA honors curriculum and other coursework that parents have voiced concerns about over the past few years. One concern that arises is the balance of reading at school versus home, so we will discuss the district, we will continue to discuss this as the teachers work to revise curriculum. And finally, we discussed summer work. The committee requested clarification on summer reading and math resources as there was parent feedback that it wasn't given and or visible. Some parents reported receiving work while others did not. It was suggested to create a quick link on the website and app for those summer resources so parents do not have to comb through the webpage to find them. There were no policies for review. On our agenda, we have approval of our field trips for the Globe Junior and ABA class at middle school. We have the approval of the Highland Park Public Schools District 2023-2024 plan. That's something we have to approve. Since COVID, every few months, it is not changing. Everything remains the same. And the approval of some university graduates and students teaching internships and junior practicums and observations for some of our social emotional learning lab interns and school counselor interns. And that's all for my report. Any questions?
Thank you, that was a lot.
Any more on Middlesex? Curious like what did you find about your positive reaction on the possibility of partnering with them for courses?
We did, first of all, the tour of the campus was amazing there. We went to see the new, where they have the dental hygienist classes. Whoa, what a state-of-the-art, I'm gonna go there and get my dental cleaning. State-of-the-art, state-of-the-art work there. It was very, very impressive. We also saw some of the other labs that they had, some of the new buildings. It was fantastic. The president was very warm and welcoming to the three of us that went, myself, Lisa, and Michelle. And originally they had pushed a lot of the dual enrollment with us, which means that essentially our teachers become approved to be Middlesex College professors, right? And for a very nominal fee, our students could take something like pre-calc and dual enroll, and if they meet the requirements, essentially get Middlesex College credits for that. That's different from an AP class. And that's nice because it's a cheap way to get college credits, especially for basic classes in math and ELA, especially going into college. Unfortunately, when we've tried in the past, only a couple of teachers expressed interest, and the ones that didn't meet the requirements at the time because you had to have a master's level in the content area, and it was very specific. They've since adjusted some of those options for teachers. In addition, we do have some new staff on board. Like we have a new chemistry teacher who has a PhD in chemistry, who has taught at the college level, so she might be interested in doing dual enrollment. One of the options that we really liked best was dual enrollment hybrid, where they bring the professor to us. So they bring the professor, and it's a hybrid course, so the students would take like the online portion or the the in-class portion with the professor 1 or 2 days a week, and then the rest of the week, or when they have class, would be self-paced, self-study, like you would in a college class. So that might be a good option, especially for our AP Comp Sci, our computer science classes, some of the courses we can't offer, but they had a plethora of courses available, stuff. I mean, had some gaming design, they had some really cool stuff out there that was really fascinating that I didn't know. So we have a list we're going to share with Elizabeth Atsamoah and the school counselors. We're going to find out what students are interested in it and see what professors are available, because it has to work with their schedule too. For the high school, due to the rotating drop schedule, it might have to be an 8-period situation. We're not really sure, we have to work on that. They do have another option, which is a fully remote option, which might also work for some of our students that do well in that. So they would essentially be assigned a teacher in this class. They would go to their remote class while they were in high school, but instead of the, me as a teacher teaching the class, they would be in a college class essentially, they do have professors at Middlesex that are former high school teachers that love teaching these classes because they love going back to their roots and teaching high school students, so they understand the needs of high school students, but also the rigor of a sort of college level, entry level curriculum. So they did propose a couple of those options. In addition, they proposed several certificated programs that are non-degree bearing that might be available of interest for our students. Same thing like we did with the aviation and the drone, that students might want to take just to get some expertise, like phlebotomy, things like that. So like you can't do your practicum until I think you're 17 or 18, but the students could take classes leading to being a phlebotomist or something like that, just to give students that may be interested in the healthcare field or looking for more career readiness than college readiness, or maybe trying a college level class in a low risk environment may encourage them to take classes at Middlesex College in the future. One of the things I also appreciated about Middlesex College was that they were really about the whole student. They offer through their EOF funding so many opportunities for students, especially students that are first generation thank you students, for opportunities like housing and food. If they have food insecurity or housing insecurity, they have a lot of options for students that I didn't even realize existed out there. So I really want to make sure that we get the administration, especially at the middle school and high school, and middle school too, because sometimes by the time the students get this in high school, I don't want to say it's too late, but they may have had other paths or ideas in mind, but maybe encourage them to start thinking about these things in middle school. So the administration and the school counselors in both buildings too, to know about the opportunities, because I think that's really important. So it was a really great meeting, and I'm excited to partner with them for a lot of robust opportunities.
Can I ask a follow-up question about that? Would these be semester courses, since it's being taught at the
So some of them are semesters, some of them are full year.
Would it be possible to start one?
So yes, we can. So we did ask about that. So if we have like our pre-calc or chemistry or an ELA teacher that is interested in doing it, they said they can get the process started in the fall for a January term for the students. Yeah. And yeah, so we know a couple of teachers, especially Lisa, definitely thought of a math teacher and our new chemistry teacher that might be interested.
I know we don't currently have an honors chemistry, it's just, CE chemistry or BP, so the fact that they could potentially do something with
Correct,
yes, is great.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Anything else?
It's great to hear there's so many options now.
Okay, we're going to move on to equity and excellence. Monique?
Yes, we met. Yes, Equity and Excellence met on July 20th. It's myself, Allison Southdown, Jen Voorhees, and Dr. Koja. The first item on our agenda. Oh, sorry about that. First item on our agenda was a discussion that had previously been presented at the previous board meeting by the curriculum committee around the two proposed Schedule 3 positions with Bartle and the school green team clubs, which the green team club has been in existence for almost 11 years, but currently the request is for a stipend for clubs to have focused tasks on sustainable life choices, and the curriculum instruction committee is reviewing the proposals. There were some questions around the fundamental and involvement of the students around helping with the grant application, funding of activities. So equity committee didn't necessarily have any additional questions. We did ask about sort of the demographics of the students participating in the Marbles Community Club, and Dr. Koja getting back to us on that. We also discussed briefly AP and honors cohort and accessibility issue, which is ongoing discussion at the excellence. Dr. Koja reported that she's working with Jen on pulling the AP and honors course registration data together so we can sort of see what the breakout is in those classes, what we're meeting for, all that, all those data and points to be pulled together in a cohesive format and presented. We also looked at the discipline data reports and discussed the continued over-representation of Black, Latino, Hispanic students and students with disabilities receiving ISS/OSS suspension. Dr. Koja indicated that RISE, which is a program that provides students with alternative to in-school suspension, is a logical consequence model, again, to replace ISS. So technically, the district no longer has ISS. However, on the books, because students are being removed from the instructional portion of the instructional day, the RISE program is being, as far as the state's concerned, treated as in-school suspension. We talked about kind of the choices that students may be given during their time in RISE. Dr. Bush did report that the students are receiving hard instruction as well as hard therapeutic support during their time in RISE. But it has been difficult to provide choices of activities due to not just lack of staff coverage. So we also, a document was shared recently between this DOE Office of Civil Rights resource was shared in the committee. This particular resource is intended to support districts in confronting racial discrimination and student discipline. So we thought as a committee it would be helpful for us to look at this resource together and hopefully the administration will also take a look at it and do what we can in terms of using this resource to support our work in addressing racial disparities, which again, not all cases of discipline involve racial discrimination. This particular report does provide some useful information on how to address the kind of disparities that Highland Park is not alone in seeing in discipline. So that's just an ongoing discussion for our committee, and we hope to see some helpful measures being implemented to address this issue. We also talked about ongoing professional development in the area of restorative and responsive practices. Dr. Koja reported that there is a large number of staff, majority of which are at the middle school bar, I believe, that will be participating in or have been participating in creating a restorative and responsive PPE over the summer. It's really obviously it was like so. We were happy to hear that. There will staff will also be attending responsive classroom, responsive advisory PPE sessions. 9th and 10th grade. 9th and 10th grades will be piloting responsive advisory in the fall. So we look forward to hearing more about that when that pilot starts to take off. And that is it. Right,
Thank you. Questions from the meeting? We move to finance and facilities, and I am giving that committee report. So help me out, please. Not my area of expertise, so I'm learning. So we met on August 1st, and with Dr. Nicosia, John Flanagan, Denise DeRosa, our BBA, myself, and Jen Voorhees that met. I'll briefly go over the topics we talked about, and then I'll do the agenda items. So we first talked about the status of the 22-23 financials for the district. April, May, and June financials have been outsourced for reconciliation. Denise is starting with the July financials and will be sharing with us each month. The status of the ROD grants, these were submitted in the spring for, if I'm correct, flooring work at Irving and roofing work at Bartle. Denise has met with the architects to get an update on the status of these grants. Did I say something incorrect? Please feel free to correct me.
Yeah, as I said, we should be receiving notification probably by the end of the month if
Okay, so we've applied and waiting to hear. Okay, thank you. That's the kind of corrections I need. We talked about the ESSER 2 and the ARP ESSER grants. So the ESSER 2 funding ends September 30th of this year, and the ARP extends for one more year to September 24th. Denise is working on reconciling our numbers with those of the state to see, where the money is, and if there's money left, if it can still be spent. So she is working on that for us. We had a status update on the Bartle Playground. John reported the work is proceeding. I am on the playgrounds. A lot's been done there. If anybody in the community is walking by, the completion is likely by the end of August. So certainly go out and check out the new playground. We talked about the modular classrooms. John reported that the company is in the process of refurbishing them, and everybody from the district, John and Dr. Koja and Denise are all working with the company to try to get them to deliver those by August 14th. They're working hard to make that happen. I don't know where that is yet. I'm hearing wrong over here. We'll come back to you. Awnings and ramps. Ramping are on back order, so hopefully we get the module, we set them up. We may not have some of those finishing touches in place, but we have to try some workarounds. When they are finally delivered, they have to get ready for a CO, which is energy and electrical hookups and so forth. So it feels like a stretch to have them done on time, but I know there's a plan B, and they will get done. So that's what we got the other day. That's where we are. I don't know if you want to add anything. Good morning. Okay, good for now. Okay. But we do know everybody's working hard to make it happen, but it's not an easy process. I think everybody in the state is looking to get these modulars set up. We're not the only ones in this situation or wanting to get our pre-K kids on campus and in school and not having the space for them. So we are competing with everybody else out there to make this happen. The last item we talked about was the referendum that we have been discussing and that a lot of work's been done to prepare for. This is the referendum to build additional classrooms so that we can expand our pre-K options, so we can get more of our 3 and 4-year-olds into the district for full-time education as mandated by the state and also as we feel is really a good healthy option for our kids. So we've been discussing the options of building onto Bartle. We have architects' pictures that have been shared. Possibility that's looking not so likely of adding onto Irving, and then of building on a piece of property that is owned by RASPA in town. We sort of made the decision the other day, and Jen, you could make sure I'm saying this right, that we're going to go ahead and try to present these options to the board. Because we have to figure out how do we move forward. Somebody's got to decide. So that we can then decide what this referendum is going to look like and when and so forth. So the proposal is that Dr. Kozia, and with the help of the architects, I believe, will present to the board at our early September meeting. We only have one meeting in September, which I realized the other day, which means that we would be voting at our first meeting in October on those choices. Whenever we do vote, it still is a 6-month lead time to prepare for a referendum. So at this point, we're looking at a referendum in March 2024. And then I guess 2 years after that, to potentially actually have space built. That's my understanding of it. And then policies we have not. So let me go over the agenda items, and then if there's questions or any of those topics, we can talk some more. So the agenda has the approval of bill list for June and for July, or the first half of July, the cafeteria list for July, budget, the treasurer's report up through March 31st. We have actually, then we're going to be voting on travel and related expense reimbursement reports. Number 6 talks about our district's doctor. And that's who we get from St. Peter's, and they're going to be assigning us a doctor. So that's the person who does physicals and follows up on issues as they come up. Number 7 is a long list of out-of-district placements that we approve so that they will be available when the child 18 needs them for a particular student. So it's a long list related to tuition. Were these actually students? Student number, I'm sorry. So we are approving out-of-district placements for students within our district at these particular schools and at the tuition rate. that's listed. We have proposals for flooring at Barlow High School, and one that we accepted, which is significantly cheaper, luxury floors. We are approving or voting on the revised submission of the school-based youth contract, which interestingly enough has increased their funding by almost $20,000. Ironic, because right now this is the last approved year by the state that they're going to fund our program. Hopefully they will change that, but for the one year they've increased their funding. 12 and 13 is just a change of where the money is coming from for our canopy and footing for these modular classrooms. So I think we approved them last time, but there's a change with the funding source. Then we're moving the recommendation to approve lots of reimbursement for non-public school transportation costs. And we're approving, let's see, appropriate reserve fund balance for also related to the non-public school transportation costs. We are accepting from the state an increased amount of extraordinary special education aid, so we're grateful to receive the amount that we have. It's considerably higher than last year. We have plenty of need for it. With all those out-of-district placements and other special ed needs, they are, our community needs, so we're grateful to have that money. And the last one, number 17, is appropriation of the reserve fund balance for this extraordinary aid. Yeah. Okay, any questions on all of that?
Yeah, I guess the question, is it, I mean, should I ask, what is the plan B?
I have to put it out there.
So the plan will be that since we haven't approved the preschool monies yet, so we're not starting preschool until October, we're going to have to unpack the kindergarten supplies to reset up kindergarten classrooms in their classrooms in Irving, in the building, and then when the modulars come, shuffle the stuff through the modulars and set up the preschool classrooms. So that's the plan. So it's unfortunate that it's not that we can't start, probably it's looking like we're not going to be able to start the year with the kindergarten students out in the modulars set up ready to go, so might be some shift. So their classrooms might not be fully decorated as usual or fully, they might just have their stuff for the first month of the year. But I mean, we're hopeful because the students don't really come back till September 8th. It's a half day. So we're really hopeful that they can get them here. And we even talked about if we need to hire movers over a weekend or something like that to help if the facilities and the maintenance crew isn't available. Like, we're all on hands on deck to figure out how we can do it. So it's not an absolute no, but our plan B, we do have a backup just in case. But we are working around the clock, and I want to thank both Denise and John, especially John, who has been calling nonstop. We've escalated our grievances to the highest level at Box Modular. We have been, the three of us have been on phone calls with them endlessly to show, because they've run our third project manager now. It seems to be they're dropping the ball on a lot of things. The last was that they said, once you have the permit, this was right before the beginning of July, right before I left for vacation. They said, we'll have them ready. Once you get the permit, you'll have them within 2 weeks. I said, perfect. So I contacted the mayor and said, hey, we're having this along. I'd be grateful if you could help us out here. We just need the permits. We'll make sure we do everything by code and everything right if you could help us out. No problem. The borough was tremendous. John walked over the documents himself to get them all signed for the permits. Turns out they weren't starting construction on the interior of these until we had the permits. But the project manager said they would deliver them once we had the permits. Well, apparently the used modulars were not left in good shape. So now they had to do all this construction from sheetrock. Now it's, well, they need new windows, and the windows are delayed. And how many people want modular things, and it's one thing after another, and it's incredibly infuriating, and it's unfortunate that we don't have any leverage because any other companies and everyone else, that everyone's in the same boat, schools across New Jersey and around the world essentially, or at least, the nation right now, or in our tri-state area, are chomping at the bit for these things. So unfortunately, we don't have much leverage other than try to play nice in the sandbox and hope for the best here. So we are working around the clock, and thank you to John Flanagan and Denise DeRosa for, taking all my stress and helping me with it, and making it their stress too. So thank you so much for all their hard work and dedication. But we are all hands on deck, and we'll have updates as we get them.
And I was just gonna comment on the school-based youth contract increase, just, you just can't make it up, right? But honestly, I was thinking too about just the importance, we talked about this, the importance of really documenting, right, what we're doing and how this increased funding, what we do, just to show how essential this, programming is, which I know is gonna come with the grant process, but of course that kind of crossed my mind, to show how impactful this additional funding actually is in our schools.
Definitely.
I just want to add, I want to thank John and everybody involved in the Bartle Playground.
looks so good.
We walk by almost every night walking the dog, it looks awesome. There's been a lot of, since I took the pictures last week, I think there's been a lot of progress.
That's great.
And for my kids, at least, they would think it's big and perfect, so.
Okay.
That's right.
Yeah,
It looks really
actually,
fun.
I'm going to add to it. So what they did is they're just waiting for the concrete to settle today with the rain and all that they could do by progress. But if you go over there now before they lay the new padding, they actually did, so not only when they excavated and they leveled it, but they put drainage in. And it leads towards the drainage there. So there's that. And I don't know if you noticed, but the big former mud clay pit, they took all the clay up, and because all of that from excavating that area was really rich, great dirt. So they put that down where the mud pit was next to it, and they're growing grass. So if you walk by there now, you actually see blades of grass. It is amazing. Grass doesn't grow in clay, it grows in rich, organic, beautiful soil. I will give a shout out to anybody who's listening. There is rich, beautiful dirt over there that we're trying to find a home for. So if there's any landscapers or people in town that want to come over and get some really great dirt that at least grows grass, I'm not sure what else it grows, but it's growing grass for us, come and get it. I know John is working on trying to figure out, somebody who would for free want to come and collect this big mound of dirt that's sitting next to the playground, but it's great, great, great dirt.
There's no other questions on finance. We're going to move to you, Anne, for personnel.
Okay, personnel. We have not met since the last meeting at which I apprised the board and the public, so I'll go right to the agenda. The first item is our traditional approval of substitutes. I believe ESS Northeast is the new name for Source for Teachers. So that's pretty standard. Most of our other items here are self-explanatory. We have number 2, a leave of absence. Number 3, a resignation of a paraprofessional. Number 4, our youth safety specialist at the middle school, Mr. Jablonski, has resigned. And I saw today that the district has listed the position. It's up on AppleTrack. So presumably we are looking for someone else. Have we had any progress on that, Dr. Nicosia? I know it's
Not to my, no one's come to my attention yet, so they're probably still in the interview process.
Okay, so I've shared my feelings about the position before, and I wonder if it doesn't come to fruition soon, we might brainstorm about other possibilities. Number 5, approval of a technician for the district. Welcome, Mr. Golian. Number 6, a new kindergarten teacher, which is wonderful to see. We have 7, a new lunch aide. 8, a new media specialist at Bartle, which is fantastic. It's very hard to hire librarians, so welcome Ms. McGreevy. Number 9, we have a new paraprofessional. Number 10, our new part-time theater teacher, Ms. Confaloni. We're very glad to have her joining us. Number 11 is a new para, not new to us. Ms. Maloney has been here before. We welcome her back. Number 12, I see Ms. Luxa will be going to be the links support teacher at the middle school. That sounds like a fantastic fit from what little I know about Ms. Luxa and the position. Number 13, a transfer from Irving to Bartle. Number 14, extra hours for secretaries. Number 15, that was in Bartle. 15, extra hours for secretaries in Irving. 16 additional extra hours for secretaries who are hard at work over the summer. I'm guessing with registration in particular. Number 17, thank you to our volunteer coaches at the high school. Mr. Brzezowski will be volunteer coaching basketball. Mr. Paul Castro, as always, will be volunteer coaching baseball. And many thanks to the Rubin family. It looks like 3 Rubin family members are going to be helping out the baseball team as they always do. And I'm not sure if this means they'll be there more frequently, but it's fantastic. Mark was a star player a couple of years ago, and I did not coincide with Stephen Rubin, but he may well also have been a star baseball player. Scott, I'm sorry, excuse me, I said the wrong name. Mr. Stephen Rubin is the father. Scott Rubin is the older son. 18, appointment of extra duties for various staff members. Number 19, change of hours for child study team testing/IEP meetings for 2 staff members. Number 20, additional days for some of our summer staff. 21, additional hours for summer teaching and reinforcement. For that program, which is an ESY program, that is for paraprofessional test Powell. Number 22, approval of professional development presenters, preparation hours. That's kind of a tongue twister. Professional development presenters, preparation hours for in-service days. So we have 5 staff members there who will be preparing to give presentations to their colleagues. 23, curriculum writing. 24, 2 new Schedule B positions. And I'm not sure if the public agenda indicates there's a correction on the winter weight room position to John Lee. The corrected amount is $1,156.69, which may already be on the public agenda, I'm not sure. Approval of advisory writing program at the high school. Advisory program writing at the high school. So this is, I would assume, to sort of set out what's going to happen during the advisory period, what the curriculum will be. Is that the correct term for something that's not a substantive?
Yeah, so it's not really curriculum writing, but program writing. So essentially that's what's happening. So we're piloting with 9th and 10th graders advisory to build culture and climate. And so they're writing essentially the lessons for what would happen during that time. It's the secondary version of responsive classroom.
Wonderful, thanks. Number 26, additional instructional assignments at the high school. These are often to fill in positions when someone was on leave or when someone wasn't available for some reason, or we were not able to fill a position. Number 27, we're approving the funding of Ms. Fernstadt's salary from state and federal grants. And number 28 is an addition. Let me read it. Number 28, I'm recommending that we accept the recommendation of the superintendent to approve a speech therapist in the Ed Services Department, specifically to approve the employment of Victoria Powers as the speech therapist for educational services, step 8, master's degree, at a salary of $72,543, pending criminal history background check, effective September 1st, 2023. How many STs do we have? Is that a lower school speech therapist, or is it cover the whole district?
So it looks like we're covering that for Irving and maybe some of Bartle. So it's for lower students. We were finding that a lot more students. The rate that we have now, by mid-August, we were at about 3/4 of a full-time person for speech therapy, and we haven't even started the beginning of the year with the influx of preschool and things like that. So there's definitely a need for it. We're definitely finding a lot more students. That's a very common theme. I'm not sure if it's a mask thing. I'm not really sure what the cause of it is, but we've had to increase our speech therapy staff. So we're actually kind of getting out of the front of the gate a little bit, knowing that it'll probably by September, October be full time.
Great. Okay, so this is a part-time position.
Well, it's full time, right? But but we have she doesn't have enough students for full time, but we have enough. We have enough testing for her to be full time. So she'll be testing for part of the time, and then the rest of the time seeing actual students and giving the therapy, and then she'll be full time as the therapy when we have enough students. So there's plenty of testing to be done as well.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
That's all.
Such a hard position to fill, yeah.
Questions on personnel? Ann? Okay, thank you. The last committee report would be on policies. Policy did not meet because at this point there aren't any, but they're coming. Just from my just kind of skimming the emails that are coming through, there is a new, this is thanks to Jen picking it up, there's a new gender identity guidelines that have been approved by the state that will come to us as policy at some point soon. There was a new sick leave policy coming to us from the state, because they just passed something related to that on public employees, and something related to school threat assessment. I know those policies are on their way to us, so sometime soon, those are the ones that are, sometime soon they'll be on the agenda.
If I can share that the gender identity one will probably be a little bit of a logistically difficult one because we wrote our own initially, so we'll be comparing what we wrote with Strauss Esme's current policy, which is different from Strauss Esme's earlier policy. So we'll see how that goes.
I'm hoping it's similar to what we're already doing, but see
These
what's
are guidelines, so.
These are guidelines, yes, yeah.
I mean, last time around it was very different from what the state was recommending.
Okay.
Our policy was, but hopefully the state has joined the party now.
I'm sorry, you said our policy was very much aligned, right? Is that
It was very different from the state policy. It did not, in other words, it was more protective of trans students' rights and privacy and so forth. But again, there's been a lot of education since then, so hopefully the state is now on board with some of the concerns we had with their earlier policy.
Yeah, so I think that probably would be the case.
Oh, Rob.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rob.
Yeah, based on some of the negative reporting I've seen,
It's hard to hear you, Rob.
Oh, sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, based on some of the reporting I've seen, I think that the state policy is not, trying to get my words right. I think that state policy, I think we're going to find some of the things there that we actually do agree with. Yeah, it didn't seem like it was going to be something we would have to rewrite our words on.
It's just that our words will be very different just because we created them out of whole cloth, right? So usually when we do policies, we compare the two documents and we make the changes that are new according to Strauss Esme. Here, everything they say is going to be new because our text is completely different. But I'm sure we will figure it out.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay, we're moving to public comments. Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for your comments. Board policies 0164 and 0167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. This first public comment session is 3 minutes per speaker, and you're obviously able to speak on the topic. So, Nikki, I see the hand is up, is Nikki Stanio?
Hello, Nikki Stanio, 280 North 3rd Ave. I just want to comment on 2 items. One of them was, I'd like to ask you to consider putting kindergartners in the modular classrooms. Basically, they're still at ages where change and transitions are difficult. Many are in school for the first time ever, and many who went to preschool pre-K last year struggled a lot with the simple transition of going into the building every day just to drop off. Moving is stressful for anyone, and this kind of drastic change, not just once when they start school, but then twice when they move from their finally adjusted comfort zone to another place, can be detrimental to their adjustment to school and affect their learning.
It's a little hard to hear you, Stanio. Can you speak a little louder?
Sure, should I start over?
No, that's continue.
Okay, so maybe consider putting first grade in, maybe because they've had enough time to acclimate over the years, and they would probably adjust a lot better than the 5-year-olds who are still struggling. The other thing I wanted to comment on was that for the SHIP program for summer, I just had a little bit of insight on why some parents might not be putting their kids in. It sounds like a great program, but a lot of them have to put their kids in summer camp for childcare reasons, and summer camp needs to be paid for a deposit by February a lot of the time. Otherwise, you miss out. So if they're hearing about it at the last minute in June, they really cannot just pull their kid from that summer camp. That gives them a full day of childcare as well. So I know the shift program is only about half a day, which doesn't really provide the kind of care that the kids need. What just an idea would be to possibly either move it to an August session where there's a summer camp, or they're back from vacations, or having a second session to make an opportunity a little bit easier for kids who, parents or families who did want to put their kids in the program, but just aren't able to because of those logistical reasons. And that's it, thank you.
Thank you very much, good suggestions. Any other members of the public that would like to speak? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move on to board action items. And curriculum and instruction, if you could move your items.
Yes, I'd like to move items 1 through 3.
Second.
I'm going to take time.
Ms. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Gowan,
Yes.
Ms. Bruce,
Yes.
Mr. Rosler.
Yes.
The seats.
Oh, Ms. Coleman.
Yes. Sorry, I apologize.
Ms. Voorhees,
Yes.
All right, we move on to finance and facilities, and I move items 1 through 17.
Second.
Ms. Casaldine,
Yes.
Ms. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Gowan,
Yes.
Ms. Bruce,
Yes.
Mr.
Until we name thereof.
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees,
Yes.
Okay, and personnel. Ann?
I'd like to move items 1 through 27 on the agenda, plus the new number 28 that I read in.
Second?
Ms. Casaldine,
Yes.
Ms. Coleman,
Yes.
Ms. Gowan,
Yes.
Ms. Bruce,
Yes.
Mr. Roslovich,
Yes.
Ms. Voorhees.
Yes.
Okay. We move on to the president's report. I actually have some things that I need to add, I want to add. So a few different items, but first of all, the board has received resignations from Chris Woodward and Mark Krieger. These resignations are already effective, and obviously they're not here tonight. We thank them both for their years of service to our school community. Chris was appointed to the board in 2019 and has served since then. His term ends on December 2025. Mark has been on the board for more than 15 years, serving for a number of years as president of the board as well. His term also ends December 2025. Both are leaving us for family and personal reasons. They will be greatly missed. That is an understatement. At a meeting in the future, we will celebrate their contributions to our schools. We again thank them for their service, and we'll hopefully have an opportunity to congratulate them on their contributions at a later date. We do need to move on to the practical side of how we replace them here on the board, or how we fill their positions. We're not going to replace them. We have a process. Let me read it. So we are looking for applications from people who are willing to take a position on the board. We're going to be posting on the board's website and on social media these two positions on our board. The selection process will be as follows. Interested individuals should email a letter of interest and a resume to Ms. DeRosa. The deadline for that is August 21st. So that's 2 weeks from today, or in about 2 weeks. Once you've sent us your letter of interest, you've emailed us a letter of interest and a resume, you will receive an email back to say you're eligible to speak to the board about your candidacy, which will take place at the next public meeting, which is August 28th. At that public meeting, we're going to ask applicants to make a short, maybe 5 minutes introductory speech to address their qualifications and why they're suited to join the board. We'll also send you in advance a set of prompts that that we'd like you to include in your prepared remarks. Some questions or topics that the board would like to hear about. Once we've heard from each of the candidates, then the board will excuse itself to executive session, and then we will come back to public session to vote on the candidates to fill those spots. At that very meeting, the candidate will be sworn into office and we will immediately begin to serve, so they will then join us for the remainder of the meeting. So we hope that there are candidates out there that are willing to join us. We certainly, our community needs you. We need the interest of the community in order to keep doing the work that we're doing. So we look forward to hearing getting your emails, expressing interest in these positions. And the other piece that I want to talk about was our other, so that's another former board member, as Dr. Nicosia spoke earlier. I also can't let the evening go without saying how heartbroken we are to have learned of the passing of Darcy. And I don't want to go over all the things that Dr. Nicosia said, but I only knew Darcy during the time I've been on the board, which is 3 very short years, and they were COVID years. And I just was thinking about it today. My first year as a board member, I didn't know anybody, right? I was just you were all like faces on the screen and voices, and I had no idea what was going on. We will do much better for our new candidates in terms of mentoring them and getting them ready to serve. But I just listened, and it was Darcy's voice that resonated with me. So once I gone through one meeting or two, and I heard all these voices, I said, okay, Darcy's the one I've got to call. And I reached out to her, and I said, I got a lot of questions. And we had a great conversation that day, and many number after that. I wish I had known her longer, is what I keep thinking about. I wish I had gotten to know her better and longer. But I did learn a great deal from her at the time that I did know her. I guess the other thing I wrote down was Jonathan Bush had put some words on, it was on Facebook, but he shared some thoughts, and I really loved what he had to say because he knew her very well. And he said that Darcy's passion stemmed from her role as a dedicated community activist, and her extraordinary professional knowledge came from her experience as a policy advocate on behalf of public schools. And I love that he said Darcy never gave up on behalf of public schools, just like she never gave up on fighting for herself. She was one of the most genuine and decent people you could ever meet, and her passion was infectious to everyone around her. We are all very much going to miss her. I like something that Christina had said in an email, that we need to carry on, sort of paraphrasing a little bit, we need to carry on Darcy's legacy of advocacy. I feel like as a board, it would be great if we could commit ourselves to that, to working on the advocacy that she worked so hard on and take up where she left out. And of course, our hearts go out to Darcy's daughters and husband and her entire family. She will be greatly missed. And we're hoping, and you'll hear more in the future, of some kind of a living legacy within our district to carry on her name. And that's just in the starting conversations on what that would look like. But we'll hear about that sometime in the future. That's my president's report. Anything else I want to say on that?
Yeah, I guess first I just want to start with the question about the candidate process for interviews. So when they present themselves to us, was there a slight change in the process? Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yes. Yeah, when I was in it, I think Alice and I were the last 2 people that came on that way. We were interviewed. We were put in a waiting room, and one person was public, and we interviewed. At Jonathan's recommendation, he says best practice now is not to go through this interview process publicly, but to give the candidates an opportunity to present themselves sort of at the podium. And so we thought we'd add to that by giving them some sort of leading questions to include in the presentation. So that's sort of where we are with that.
So in a sense, it's right. I guess in a sense, there's still interview questions. They're just being presented in advance in the form of a prompt.
Right. So they can prepare. So these candidates could prepare rather than kind of be surprised by the questions.
Okay, just want to make sure I heard that correctly.
Yes, right. It was a change in how we did it last year. It was based on Jonathan's recommendation that that's a better practice, maybe more fair. Everyone can take a shot at the same questions and prepare them in advance.
And I just kind of wanted to say, speak on the loss of Darcy and how difficult it's been for the community as a whole. Certainly those of us who worked closely with Darcy here in the school board. those of us who are fortunate to just call her friend. And I feel like it's, even though she hasn't been with us physically as a school board, we still feel her absence tremendously here today, knowing that she has passed on, and because she was always, her presence was always here, right, even when she wasn't physically present. And I remember when it was her last board meeting here, we, sort of jokingly said, we may need you back, or, something to that effect. And she said, hey, hey, they call, at the time, calls for me to come back.
One second, we dropped the Zoom. We dropped the
That was
Zoom.
quick when we sent it to them.
Yeah, it was-
Yeah.
Sorry, there's a bad storm out there.
Oh,
We're still on though?
Okay.
Okay. Some of us. Some of us are.
So, you're not.
But Maryland's cold, so it's gonna be okay.
So is it actually?
Yeah.
It's on,
We're
we
back
just
on
might
now.
not be able to hear, very well.
I don't wanna, I don't wanna say too much here, just because I know a lot has been said, and we're all just still, really feeling it. It's difficult just to even be here thinking about, this loss. But I wanted to just share some of Darcy's own words. I feel like she, wrote extensively, as we all know, most of us know, on issues related to education policy and her advocacy work. And I just kind of clipped out 2 excerpts from perhaps one of her last writings. This one was in December 22 in an article in the Bedford Gazette. And it just, 2 excerpts really speak to Darcy's work here, her passion, and what she stood for. So when we talk about carrying on kind of the legacy of Darcy, I think it's important to define what that means, right? So that, really clear about where she stood and what she valued and what she championed for the school district. And I know all resonates with all of us here. I think it's important to really define that. So here, again, just 2 little excerpts here from her article, or blog post. My district, unlike many, is racially, ethnically, and socioeconomically diverse, with 31 languages spoken in the homes of our students. Educating such a diverse student body presents many challenges and requires a nuanced approach to policy and practice that ensures all students have equal opportunities to learn, thrive, and grow. While it is easy for school leaders to say they embrace diversity, equity, and inclusion, it's far too challenging to implement policies promoting those principles. And yes, I would just add to that Darcy nevertheless stood firm in those principles and values and worked anxiously and collaboratively to ensure that the district was always prioritizing the importance of addressing the needs of marginalized communities, ensuring that everyone, all of our students, were represented and at the table. And then she goes on to say, I spent my time on the school board helping to develop systems that ensure decisions are made collaboratively and with as many voices at the decision-making table as possible. This means making space not only for administrators, teachers, parents, and students, but also ensuring that historically marginalized groups are represented. Decisions that affect students should never be based on the whims of those with the most privilege or power, and indeed not on who has the loudest voice in the room. So again, I just wanted to just let Darcy speak for herself here as we think about, her legacy, what she meant for our district, and what she, her vision for a better Highland Park School District.
Thank you. Anybody else on that, or we can move on to old business? Do we have anything on old business that we bring up? I'm kind of curious, talking to Matt, I'm kind of curious about the aftercare and where we are, and if there's anything to update on aftercare. And with respect to parents, might have questions.
Yeah, I know, I saw Colin, the end of last week, working out of my conference room, feverishly on posting things on the website. So I did ask Ms. O'Dotto to get me an update on that, so I'll follow up tomorrow and get that information out as soon as possible. So my guess is that I know there's been some stuff posted on the website, but he's been working feverishly to get all of that done.
Any other old business? I also have a piece of new business I want to bring up. Sorry, I'm taking everybody's time tonight. But I participated in the redevelopment walk that the borough, one of the redevelopment walks that the borough did. I was on one this was last week at night. And personally, I haven't been so clued into the redevelopment work. As planned, I've been too busy with Board of Ed to really focus on what the borough is doing, although I know they've been working very hard. But I thought, I went on the walk because I thought I kind of needed to know, and I actually learned a lot. It was really excellent, and I thank them for doing it. I did want to share with the board that I think we need to keep an eye on the impact of the redevelopment on our schools. What I learned was the projects planned are bigger than I had understood previously, I guess, or that I thought about. And I heard numbers like 100, 140 units, more than one set of apartment complexes going around Avenue. I'm not bringing it up to say anything about pros and cons of redevelopment. I just want us to keep an eye on the impact on our schools. There were a number of community members there. I was quiet, but there was a number of community members that were there that asked the question, can our schools handle the potential increase in enrollment as they add new apartments or condos? And I think the impression was given that we can, but in fact, we are almost at capacity in much of our district. And aside from referendum, which is about pre-K, Dr. Koja has shared that there are places where they're really struggling to find special education classrooms, a lab for SEL, and others. So we are at capacity in many places, and I suggested, and maybe it goes back to finance, I don't know where it comes from, that we do a study on capacity in the district. I suggested Dr. Koja so that we have some formal data to share with the borough as to actually where we are with space for additional students as they plan redevelopment. It would be helpful for them to have that information for us. Mark, obviously never goes away here. He shared with us a capacity study that was done, I think, in 2016, which he felt was not accurate at the time. It was not accurate, and it wasn't particularly helpful because it didn't predict well. And in fact, we didn't get a large increase in enrollment, according to Mark, from like the River Road, that area. So it was predicted in the study that there would be a large increase, and in fact, that wasn't the case. Again, this is Mark's analysis. I still think it might be worth doing anyway because hopefully we get a better firm and maybe we get better data than we got. That was many years ago. I think there's interest in the community to know whether in fact we can handle the increase in enrollment. So I think that would be helpful for us to do going forward. The other thing that came up on the walk was the question, this was again coming from community members, I'll bring it up, questions about whether the district is receiving its share of pilot money. That's the payment in lieu of taxes that developers negotiate with the borough. So I just want to clarify that we have not yet received any pilot money, and that's with the arrangement from the Walter Street project. But I am happy to say that we've been assured by the mayor and the borough and members of our council that the district will receive its share of pilot money on this project, on the current project in Walter Street, and on future projects to negotiate with developers. So I look forward, and Dr. Nicosia is working with the borough council and maybe with the mayor, so hopefully make that happen sometime in the near future. So those are things I just wanted to put on your radar because they came up online. And if there's no comments on that, I'll move to public comment.
Thank you. I was just going to say, I mean, there's really no question, as you said, that with the fact that we can't sustain, a much more growth in our district, the question is really what's the projected impact, right?
Right, which is, I guess it's hard to tell, and right, and on the walk, he said, we don't know if they're going to be two-bedroom apartments, or somebody said, well, if they're 55 and over, of course, that won't impact the schools, and that would be very lovely, but they don't know any of that, whether that's not yet been decided or released or whatever. So obviously the type of apartments will impact, but we know that even a two-bedroom apartment, people with their children, so right, you don't need a big house. So, right.
Economy, even a one-bedroom.
Well, great, yes. So it's certainly a potential concern.
Yeah, I agree with the study, I'm sure we all do, that makes sense to you.
Yeah, so then really has space and whatever, and then maybe that happens. Okay, we're at our last public comment. The Highland Park Board of Education welcomes public participation and has reserved this time for comments. Board policies 0164 and 0167 establish and regulate the right of the public to participate in public meetings. So if anybody would like to speak, let's see, Rebecca Hirsch. You ready to start? We should start, thank you.
Hi, thank you. I'm Rebecca Hirsch, 331 Felton Avenue. I just want to thank you guys for all the work on the Bartle Playground. It's like so great, and I just wanted to say thank you for that. And I have a question about the high school classes, possibly with Middlesex County. Also, thank you for looking into that. really appreciated. My high schooler was really disappointed that there was no AP computer science. She was going to take that this year, or honors physics or anything like that. So thank you for looking into alternatives with Middlesex County College. I just was confused by something that you said. So would some of these Middlesex County classes potentially be able to be taken during A period? Is that what you said?
I think that was one of the possibilities, nothing obviously set in stone.
Yeah, it might be a possibility, but we're not sure yet.
Oh, okay, I love that idea. I just want to say I think it's a great idea. Because there's not enough A period options right now, and it would be really great if they had that. So I just wanted to thank you for looking into that too. That's all.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Abby.
Hi, Abby Stern Cardinal. I live on Harper Street. I just wanted to say thank you for going through the full process for the appointments. That's really helpful for the public just to kind of know what the timeline is. I did want to just bring up that you said that there will, after the interviews, or I guess not interviews, but the statements, that the BOE will go into executive session to deliberate, and I am a big proponent of open public meetings, and I just wanted to make sure that that is really permitted, because I believe all deliberations are supposed to be public, and not that you can't obviously, talk separately in appropriate ways, but I just want to make sure that if you are having deliberations, there's a specific purpose that, that needs to happen, and that it can't happen publicly, because, we really do need everything to be public. So just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, so that is per the legal advice, so that is the requirement that we have for board policy and for legal advice to move into executive session for discussion. So it is all legitimate as per policy and for legal guidance.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing none, then I move that we adjourn.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank everybody from the public for joining us.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.